You're up here this time, Kurt.
Past the
Put that in there for now.
Okay, you made the bell. You made the bell.
producer, you know, at the end there and stuff like that.
Okay, let's,
That all worked out well. So, yeah. Oh, yeah. They grow up, you get to do more and more with them.
you still here?
You still me. You can do this, I guess. I'm just trying to figure out, I don't know which one.
Then we come to order.
I'm afraid it'll be screwed up.
This is the Washington Area Highway Transportation Committee. It is Monday, June 30th, 2025. Gina, can we have a roll call, please?
Peg Miller.
Here.
Wendell Eckelkamp.
Now you're, okay.
Jordan Delaveras. Here. Ray Frankenberg.
Here.
Bob Engelman. Here. Bill Stratman.
Oh, my gosh, Bob.
Mayor Hagedorn.
Here.
Joe Holtmeyer.
Here.
Sandy Lucy.
Here.
Albie Eckelkamp. Steve Solentrop.
Here.
Kurt Understall.
Here.
Jeff Niemeyer. Charles Stankovic. Darren Lamb.
Here.
Please stand for the pledge of allegiance. I
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning to all. Thank you all for coming. First item on the agenda is always the approval of the minutes. Gina, great job again. I don't know how you do it. Great job. Any changes, corrections, deletions, whatever? Anybody?
Make a motion.
Motion to approve as presented.
Second.
All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you all. Minutes are approved. First item on the agenda, we've always had Amtrak.
Don't really have a report today. We have our next MORPAC meeting coming up in August, I believe. So unless there are any questions, I'll bring more information back from that meeting probably.
Very good. Thanks, Craig. Missouri River Bridge access flood mitigation. Charles, there you go. Why don't you just stay up here, Charles?
We're Corps almost there with the study. They're one more month of internal reviews, and then they're gonna send us over the report. So
What's that look like? Any?
I don't know the full scope until they send it over, honestly. So
Do we know anybody in the Corps of Engineers?
just our contacts there. But yeah, they're one of them was out on leave for a little bit, and she just got back, so she's gonna finish up the review and then get it over to us. So should be a report by next meeting.
For the new people that might be in the audience, explain what's going on with that.
Yeah,
if you
so
don't mind.
the city reached out to do a initial study. It started as a causeway for Highway 47 north of the bridge there. But we also had them take a look at a levee, probably, trying to protect the airport as well as raise Highway 47 there. They also looked at down there by Dutzow, raising some of the low spots in the road there to kind of help with flooding as well. So levee, causeway, and just some other tweaking of the roadway to help with flooding in that area over there. So just an initial study, and then more to come later.
I just, so Joe thought if he had anything to add, but it looks like he doesn't have
The
anything.
Dutzel area is, that we moved that back up on when we do that. So, I mean, we're working on that study as well.
Very good. Still moving, still active.
Oh, absolutely.
Just keep it on there till something happens, right?
Hey.
All right, thanks. Thanks. Franklin County Transportation Committee? Very good, Jim.
Yeah, so this morning we'll have a presentation. Darren, you don't want to do that now, right?
Well, let's let Jim go ahead and report
Okay.
for his committee, and then we'll do it after that.
Good morning.
Morning.
Nothing really new to report on Franklin County Transportation Committee, other than we are still accepting grants until 3 o'clock this afternoon for our yearly grant program. As of right now, we have 5 applications that have been submitted. Probably another 1 or so submitted yet today. We will have a meeting of the Transportation Committee later in July. And at that time, the results of the requests will be reviewed by the committee. So that's where we're at right now.
Jim, is the committee, your committee, looking forward to maybe doing a single, working with the other, getting a single project, I guess.
I think he's talking about if everybody else doesn't apply for the STP funds.
I will let Darren discuss that.
Okay, so that will be, yeah,
Yes.
okay, that's fine. Just
Yes,
wanted-
we have been in discussion on that.
Very good. Very
Thank you.
good. Thank you. Is that all?
If there's no questions.
That's, any questions for Jim? Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
You bet. 50/50 MoDOT grants.
I'll just briefly give an update, and then I'll let Jordan go ahead and move forward with this 47 study. So the city council and the Franklin County Commission have entered into an intergovernmental agreement that basically what it does is it allows for the first 4,000 feet south of the city limits to go ahead and apply for a 50/50 cost share, which we are anticipating very close to $12 million. The city hopefully then is successful. That will be at MoDOT's September meeting, they would vote on that, is that correct? So then once we hear back from the Highway Commission, and hopefully we get the good news from that, then what the next step would be this winter to apply for the STP funds to go ahead and get 80% of that 6 million that's on the local share. And then with that, then the local grant would, or the STP grant would have a local share of 20%, which is approximately 1.2 million. And we would split that then between the City of Washington and Franklin County Commission. So that's what the agreement states. So you were asking about a letter or something to get out to the other cities about not applying for STP funds next year. We're still working on that because the first step was to go ahead and enter into this intergovernmental agreement, and that was just completed this month. So now that that's complete, we'll go to the other cities and talk to them. Obviously, I think Union and St. Clair know a little bit about the fact that we're looking at doing this. It's a matter of talking with some of the other cities that may not be along the corridor to make sure, see if they are applying for STP funds. But we've got some time to do that. First step was getting this intergovernmental agreement that both the county and the city agreed to do the local cost share if we're successful at the 50/50 grant, and then later with the STP funds.
Well, I think we gotta work the system. I mean, that's how it has to be done.
Absolutely.
And Jordan can conclude, tell us also how important it is for the communities to work together.
This would add another $12 million towards this project is basically what we're trying to go ahead and do. So Jordan's got basically, I think, a synopsis of what was done at the community advisory group level back in April from this presentation.
Yes.
So I don't know if he's got whatever updates he's got in the meantime, but with all that being said, unless you got questions about the agreement, I let Jordan go ahead and do his presentation on their findings so far. Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Jordan.
Yeah, so just as Darren said, you know, that partnership is going to add essentially $12 million to the project that we already have stated for fiscal year 28. So at this time, I think there's been a couple questions of, you know, with the addition to that project and a couple other, if there's other partnerships in addition, the $76 million that we have allotted for that time frame and that project of fiscal year 28, that's kind of set. We're not going to pull any funds from that just because there is partnership and money coming from elsewhere. This is, like Darren said, adding to that project. So if there are any other kind of agreements or partnerships along that line with any other municipality, that's definitely something that's just going to add to the corridor and benefit the corridor. So that is something that we are taking a look at and speaking with everybody that we can. So what we have here this morning is kind of the presentation that we gave from our second community advisory group meeting. That was in April. We are looking for our third community advisory group in August. So that's what we're gearing up towards, looking at a bunch of different things to prepare for that. After that community advisory group, we are going to move into a public meeting. So everybody will be able to see all that and everything. So we just went through a kind of a high level at the Franklin County Transportation Committee meeting. So Darren asked if we could do that the same way here this morning and kind of just go over some things that we've been looking at, and the same of how we're kind of trying to develop what the best case scenario is for Missouri 47 and all of the community leaders taking a look at that just the same. This morning we do have Aaron, our project manager, as well as Carrie from T Squared with one of our consultants. So they'll help me get through some of this at a high level too. So of course this was just kind of the intro to the presentation and everything. If you want to go ahead, we're gonna go quick. So this was just the project team. We can keep going. And then this is a list of the advisory group members. So we do have a lot of different disciplines from, of course, your community leaders, emergency services, your education, especially the bus service and everything is pretty crucial. And then a few different business leaders throughout the corridor and how they are pretty impactful to 47. So this is, of course, the project that we're looking at, Missouri 100 all the way to I-44. So it is 12.7 miles. Spanning, of course, Franklin County, heavily traveled used route. So this is the project timeline. As I said, we're working our way towards that anticipated construction in fiscal year 28. So we're right now trying to develop those alternatives, and so we're just moving towards that second public meeting. After that second public meeting, that's when we really get into a lot of nitty-gritty with the engineering, going through all of the environmental studies, everything like that, trying to develop those plans, put it all together. So in September of 2024, if anybody remembers that far back, seems almost a year ago now, that we did have our first public meeting, and so from that we did have a fantastic attendance and a lot of great feedback, and so we really appreciate that as we're going through the study. And so this is just one of those examples of, from that public meeting, kind of the input that we got. We kind of had it a little interactive. You could see the sticky notes on the photo a little to the left, but then we had all these little dots. And of course those dots represented, different things of safety concerns, congestion, potential growth, or what other people had concerns with. So a lot of great participation. We went from that public meeting right into our first CAG, Community Advisory Group. And so from that, we did do a lot of kind of Mentimeter kind of questions. This was judging traffic congestion and safety. As you can see, a lot of that was that safety is right there with traffic congestion, but safety a little higher. From our second one, we did develop some draft project goals. So increase safety, reduce congestion, increase reliability, and then balance the needs for local access, mobility, and economic growth. So from that, we asked what are some other project goals that we might be missing, and then we also asked, of course, what on the next one, what do we see as that kind of ranking? So I believe, Aaron, do you remember the increased safety? Is that still the highest? So increased safety was ranked number 1. Okay. And this is where I might have Carrie or Aaron jump in, some of the technical aspect.
You're getting a look.
Yeah, the consultant always gets, the tag. So, okay, if we want to go to the next slide. We're in the phase where we're looking at options, and we're starting to use not only the feedback, but the data that we collected within the corridor on existing safety and on existing volumes and all of those kind of metrics putting together. So we have identified 4 different potential cross sections, and I'll caveat this with, we're at the point where we're kind of looking at the whole corridor cross sections, big picture, and we'll work our way down. We'll talk a little bit about intersections, but we're focused right now on kind of working top to bottom. So what do we want the cross section to be? I'll also say that we're not planning to do a singular cross section throughout the whole corridor. We very much acknowledge that North 47 is a different animal than South 47, and even within both of those segments, there may be opportunities to kind of phase in and out different cross sections. So we've kind of identified 4 high-level cross-sections here. 4-lane undivided. We have already portions of 4-lane undivided in the corridor. 3-way with center left turn lane. A 2-lane divided, so with a small mountable in some cases, or raised median in the middle. And then what we have now existing 2-lane, but we would add wider shoulders to, again, we're focused on increasing the safety with every one of these options as much as we can. So those are the 4 kind of alternative cross-sections we see within the corridor. If we want to go to the next one. So we're starting to look at trying to differentiate between the pros and cons of those. These are, and this is a very high level of our existing volumes. And what I want to point out with this, the boxes, you can see 2024 and 2050 ADTs, so we've projected out to the future. What you're looking at north of 47, because I know this area, you're all probably more concerned almost with the top. That's 17 is kind of smack dab in the middle between the two cities. If we're closer to either end of that piece of the corridor, we're closer to about 20,000 now, and somewhere just under 25,000 in the future. So to keep that in mind for that north section. But we're still, 25,000 is still less than, say, 50. And it's still less than any of the potential capacity of any of those 4 cross sections. So that's the important thing to remember is outside of 50, we can handle the traffic within this corridor with any of those 4 cross section options. So obviously at 50, we have a much higher volume because 50 and 47 are combined. We're looking at almost 48,000 in the future. So, we have a 4-lane section there already, and that is appropriate. That is an appropriate cross section for that segment of the roadway. If anybody has questions too, I'm willing to take them as we go.
Can you go through the options and just kind of stay with the ET was?
Oh, sure.
The 4-lane capacities and.
Sure. So what we did is we looked, this is again a high level. There's of course minor differences depending on the actual roadway layout and geometry, but at a high level, a 2-lane undivided roadway can handle approximately 28,000 vehicles per day. So that's why I said we're looking out at 2050, and you see the north and south end of that corridor. And I'll revert to those pieces that I said that are closer to the cities. This is about 25,000 per day volume vehicles per day, so we're less than that 28,000. Yes, sir.
Ma'am, the 2050 ADT, those numbers seem underestimated. Can you elaborate where you got the basis for that 21.4 and the other two
Sure.
down below that?
It was actually a pretty robust process. We worked hand in hand with MoDOT, the consultant team. We looked at historical traffic growth. We looked at east-west gateways, projections for the future. And we kind of put all those pieces together and defined a growth percentage rate for different sections of the corridor, not the corridor overall. So I think for the majority of the corridor, we ended up at about 0.75% every year that gets compounded, which is higher than historic growth, to be honest, for the last, we looked back about 20 years. East-West Gateway is projecting somewhere around a 0.25% for the next 20 years. So we were well beyond what East-West Gateway is projecting. But that was the figure that was agreed on with MoDOT and the consultant team, projected out to 2050, so.
Were you thinking more when she said the 17,200? That was between Union and Washington.
Sure.
If you go at right at say Studerman and Beaker, that's about 20,000 between 100 and Studerman. So 20,000 there would project to about 25,000. So if you were thinking the 21 was low, in that area it is about 25,000. This was just kind of the middle segment between the two towns where it's all the through traffic. Is what she was kind of explaining, if that helps. It really is larger as you get towards Washington.
I understand, Aaron. It seems low still to me.
So just to keep going, 2-lane divided can handle approximately 32,000 vehicles per day. You get a little more capacity because you reduce the number of left turns and the slowdown and the conflicts that come from that. 3-lane section even handles a little bit more traffic daily because you do the same thing. You pull the left turns out and give people opportunities for what we call 2-stage turns, where you can use that center lane to kind of remove yourself from the through traffic and find an appropriate gap to turn. And then the 4-lane section obviously has 4 lanes and can carry quite a bit more daily traffic. Any other questions on that slide? No? Okay, I can talk about traffic forever, so I always worry about just going too far. So then we dig into a little bit about the benefits, the pros and cons of each of these alternatives. 4-lane divided. What I will say, and we talk about this a little bit more, is the safety of a 4-lane divided. The safety would be reduced through the corridor. There's a lot more opportunities for side crashes, there's less gaps for turning vehicles, and as we know, the more concrete we have on the road, the speeds increase, which has just been proven over and over and over again. So we have the potential for increased speeds in the corridor. We have the potential for more crashes in the corridor, also with more turning movements. So you'll see then, if you can follow these graphics, that the safety is reduced with the 4-lane compared to existing, but the travel time does increase. Travel time gets better. So the travel time is reduced a little bit, as well as the safety is reduced a little bit when you're looking at a 4-lane divided versus the existing.
Okay, so you're saying that if we did do, I'm just repeating this so I get
No,
it.
that's
If you
good.
did do 4 lanes, the safety factor would go down? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, we will have the
Okay.
potential for increased crashes in the corridor.
Okay, because
Yes.
of just moving around and things like
We
that.
have-
Well, you're
Yeah.
crossing 2 lanes of traffic, and when you want to make a left turn off of one of those side roads.
Right.
Uh-huh.
And the other problem, what we see now in the corridor too, is when someone is trying to make a left or even a right, and they stop or slow down in that lane, there's a lot of rear end crashes that happen.
Right.
Because that that turning vehicle doesn't get out of the way of through
Right.
traffic. Yeah.
So did we see that as did we see that statistic when we widened
100?
100? You know, did the safety factor, because, you know, we all
I don't remember
are
that.
in love with that highway. I mean-
Right. I don't remember that coming up as much, Sandy, but I mean, I'm sure that MoDOT looked at it. I think what we saw was probably more input for better travel time, more so than safety.
Right.
That was the focus more than maybe what you're seeing now.
Okay, yeah, all right, I just curious.
On Highway 100 now, we also have the safest section. We have a divided 4-lane out there. So it would have been a safer section and a quicker section.
Yeah, because we do have, yeah, you're right.
But I
about
think
that.
that's the reason why those intersections are coming up now as safety concerns. St. John's, Jones Lane, V&T, all of those. What can you do to make those safer intersections? So,
No, I was gonna say, I was really surprised when we did this presentation for the CAG, because we have a lot of emergency services there. So I think the sheriff, remind me, but there was, the sheriff's department,
EMS.
local police
Ambulance
departments.
dir-
Yes. And before we could even get to this, they jumped in and they said, we put a 4-lane in, we will see 20% more crashes. And that was a figure that.
They said it.
They said it, and I was actually kind of shocked to hear that. Like, they had that number already in their heads. So I don't know if that's from experience in the area or where that came from, but I was actually just going through the notes from this CAG last night, and that stuck out to me again. It was in the notes, so.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. So 3-way with center, 2-way left turn lane. Again, we look at the pros and cons. Again, we're going to have a faster, we'll increase, sorry, I do this backwards every time. We'll make the travel time better. We will decrease travel time somewhat because, again, give people that opportunity to get out of the way for turning vehicles, pause, find an appropriate gap. And the safety becomes way better versus existing because for the reasons I just said. We give traffic opportunities to make a 2-stage left. They're not stopped in the lane where they need to wait for an opportunity to turn, and then there's a potential for a rear end. There's a potential for them to try to squeeze through gaps if they're holding up. That's the other thing we see is when somebody's holding up traffic, they have a tendency to turn maybe before they have an appropriate gap, so we see more crashes from that. It's just these little factors that come into play over hundreds of thousands of vehicles that we start to see. So, okay. 2-lane divided. Yes. Oh, yes.
Maybe jumping the gun a little bit, Carrie, but, and I know in some sections, the costs are gonna vary dramatically versus others. Can you, at this point, give us a cost differential between the 4 and the 3 and the 2? Or-
I can't do that. That's actually being worked on right now. We're
Okay.
hoping to have that kind of high level for this CAG, potentially even for the CAG 3 or right around that same time. But what I can say is that these schematics don't do a really great job of showing you that the right of way
Sure,
necessary for
absolutely.
4 lanes versus 3 lanes is a big consideration. And even the 2-lane divided is going to be 6-ish feet less than a 3-lane. So it's even a little bit closer in as far as less right-of-way and less takings. And then, of course, the 2-lane that we have now is the least. But, you know, that right-of-way is always an enormous cost. And so there's a pretty big difference between a 4-lane and even a 3-lane and then a 2-lane divided. So
Thank you.
I can't tell you that.
I understand.
Yes.
One thing to point out on the 3-lane, the thought is 3 lanes like footprint wise, but the thought is not to keep that open middle lane open the whole corridor. It would be probably put in concrete medians here and there where you want to restrict people getting in versus where the left turns would be. So if it was open, you'd probably have a little more safety impact with people kind of passing and that type of thing. So when we say 3 lanes, we would investigate where those turn lanes would need to be.
We pay more and more attention to safety and notice some of the small changes that happen within a corridor. The more concrete, the more surface you have, the more higher your speeds are. Also, the more potential we have for dangerous driving. So we see it now to some degree with cars will pass on the shoulder. They'll pass with any opportunity they can take in a 2-lane roadway. So when you put a 3-lane out, there's experience with traffic actually using the center turn lane as a passing lane. Same thing as if we widen shoulders, they'll use the shoulders. So one thing we'll do as we move forward into conceptual and even as they get to final design, be very intentional about that center turn lane and where people will be needing it to center turn and where we can actually do something to keep it from becoming an obvious passing lane. So that's what Aaron was mentioning, but that's why you see some pretty big shifts in the traffic here, or the safety benefit. And part of that is some of these decisions that we know we'll be making in the future, so keep that in mind. So the 2-lane divided with small median, obviously you don't have the opportunity then for passing, you don't have the opportunity for left turns in front of oncoming traffic anywhere where you would like to make one. There's probably a lot of questions about how we would plan to do this, but what we would do is plan to put in multiple opportunities, probably every quarter to half mile, for any traffic that is wanting to make a left to use a roundabout or a J-turn, which we call it, kind of a U-turn potential, to circle back around and then make a right to where they want to go. Rights are much safer movements as far as the crash potential. So that was how a 2-lane divided would be accomplished. Is there any more questions on the 2-lane divided? I know we got a lot during the CAG.
So your travel time goes up quite a bit.
Your travel time goes up quite a bit, and that is why. Because that traffic is needing to probably potentially pass their left turn, come back around to it. Again, it would be a quarter to half mile out of the way. We wouldn't be sending them to Union, from Union to Washington to make their left turn, but they would do that. Now, I will point out, since you brought that up, we did have someone in the meeting say, even with a 3-lane, they would be very uncomfortable making lefts in the corridor, and they really liked this, even though they knew it was, I was surprised to hear it, even though they knew it would probably be a little bit additional travel time. So the safety benefit here is really great, and it keeps the footprint narrower within the corridor, so.
You know, this reminds me of the old 66 when it was built. There was 3 lanes, and they called the middle lane the suicide lane. If you don't remember that. I think you got to have a place for people to get off, and emergency services, and you know, along that route you've got buses entering for the whole 2 school districts are coming and going. You got areas. I use my example. I'm off of Woodland Road. And literally, I can see as far as anybody can see either direction. And I swear, there's more accidents on those roads because people they're not courteous anymore. They take chances and they'll go past you on the wrong side as I'm trying to turn to the left. How do you fix stupid?
Right.
I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you make it safer.
We just keep trying, yeah.
But you can't keep adding lanes. I don't know, and I wish I knew the answer, and if we all did, but we have to rely on what MoDOT comes up with, quite honestly. They're in the business of doing this, and they want to save as many lives as they can, and they want to get the best road for the money. Quite honestly, you can stand there and talk all day what the benefits of all of them, but we have to rely on MoDOT to tell us, this is what would be the best for you guys. I don't know. We don't know. Nobody in the audience knows. So I'm sorry.
No, that's a great feedback.
Are there any three-lane highways in the state of Missouri?
Yes. Gosh, but you guys will have to help me where MoDOT has,
19?
19?
I thought it stretches south of Rolla.
I'm not positive. I know there are because I know we've looked at the, EPG has different metrics for the 3 lanes, but off the top of my head, I don't know where they are, but we could find out. That'd be good.
63's got some 3-lane on it.
That's
Yeah.
what I thought too. Maybe I was thinking of that, 63 rather.
63 going north out of Rolla.
Yeah.
Just curious if that was.
No, that's a great point. I know there's metrics out there that we rely on, but I'm not sure exactly where they come from.
Okay, thanks.
Sure. I'm gonna find that out. Okay, and then the final one is existing 2-lane with widened shoulders. As everybody knows, we have 2-lane out there now for much of this corridor. We've heard similar feedback about emergency services, buses, things like that. And so the idea would be to give some wider shoulders for those, to have a facility for kind of those buses and the emergency services to use. So that's where the wider shoulders come from. And obviously, this would be the least expensive option for multiple reasons, but one of those is right of way.
Can you elaborate on what sections of 47 currently do not have this 6 to 8 foot shoulders?
I think it's most of the south section does not have an 8-foot shoulder.
That's what I thought, but I just wanted to.
Because we do here, don't we have that?
I think we have it between here and Union, but
Yeah.
I'm saying, but once you get past south of Union, I think there's a lot of, you may only have 2-foot
Right.
shoulders, 2 to 4.
And I will say with this section, or with the existing 2-lane, I feel like I get really loud, 2-lane with widened shoulders, and that's a good point. The south section doesn't have the wider shoulders. In the north section, we'd be looking at maybe with the widening shoulders kind of building in some turn lanes. What we've really heard from the public, not to jump ahead of myself, is that capacity is an issue, but I think what the public drills it down to is turning, being able to make a southbound right to Independence. Like those very specific locations where there just doesn't seem to be that turn lane that they need. And to be honest, that we see that they need. We can see that there's some delay out there for certain movements. And so this would incorporate some very small pieces like that, like a southbound right turn lane or northbound right turn lane at some of the intersections that are already there.
That was my question, is did you talk about the middle lane, but are there areas, because there are definitely slowdowns, the one you talked about in Independence for sure, are there areas where you're considering getting some of that traffic off into a right-hand turn?
Yes, there is. And that's actually, we just finished kind of the modeling and analysis trying to identify the specific needs at specific locations.
My second question, if you'll
Yes.
entertain it, was about the capacity stuff, which was on the first slide. It talks about average daily traffic. Do you also study peak traffic? Because I think that's the most important
Yes.
thing.
Actually,
We talk
what
about
we
the whole process.
mainly study is peak hour traffic. So it's easier than coming up and talking to you all about, hourly volumes, just to talk about daily, and it makes a lot more sense to the public. But our analysis is all based on peak hour traffic, AM and PM. For the record, in this corridor, the PM is the worst case scenario. So we're really focused on that. But we also look at AM because, as you all know, who drive the corridor, PM's really bad in one direction, but AM's usually almost as bad in the other direction. So those are both taken into account to make sure we're factoring both in.
The other very large thing that we heard with that cross section of the wider shoulders is we were very surprised at the amount of pedestrians and everybody walking 47 in both sections, the north and the south. So that was a very big discussion and point for us to learn that.
Yeah. There is a desire out there for some additional non-motorized pedestrian bike facilities. So. We did a speed study, so we looked at spot speeds at about 8 points within the corridor, and what we found is generally drivers are exceeding the speed limit, especially in off-peak. So when we talk about peak hour, no, we're not really exceeding the speed limit because that capacity is not, there's too much congestion for that. But off-peak, we saw some pretty significant speeds, especially in the middle of the night. I don't even want to tell you how high they were, but some of you might know. So, but definitely what we found is that the majority of drivers are exceeding the speed limit. So when we talk about safety and we talk about more pavement equals higher speeds, this is something we really keep in mind, not to encourage any additional speeding in this corridor where it's already happening. So, or to try not to encourage it. Again, we can't control the drivers, but we can try to do our best to discourage them. So, next slide. Aaron, this is you. I don't talk about pavement.
We did do various pavement cores throughout the corridor just to see how well the existing pavement was. And what we noticed was, in order to keep the existing pavement there, but do some sort of a rehab if we weren't building brand new pavement, on the northern section, I'm gonna probably north of College to the north, it would need as much as a 6-inch mill fill, where we could then keep, because once you got below 6 inches, the pavement was in good condition. Anything pretty well, I think south of College was just like a 4-inch mill fill is all that was needed. So when we start talking about, how much it's gonna cost to actually widen the road or do different scenarios, we're taking this into consideration as well, as far as how much would need to be full depth pavement for brand new lanes and such, or how much we could do as far as the mill fill to really give that good top surface, the stability that we need for the traffic that we have. So in some of these, some of these do have shoulder cores, so it's kind of hard to see on the slide, but the real short ones basically are the shoulders. But you can kind of see in those middle layers where some of the cores are kind of unraveling and such, so that's the poor asphalt layers there. Any questions on pavement?
What are they doing on Highway 100, just out of curiosity, where they're slicing out sections and then refilling it and then?
We talking about from Washington to 44?
Right in front of my place, I see them.
Yes, that's
Oh,
what he's
pavement
talking about.
repairs.
This pavement.
Those would be full depth pavement repairs, most likely if they're saw cutting all the way across the
Yeah,
lane.
they're sawing it, but it seems like they're in a sequence, they're not.
Pretty much the joints.
Is
The
it the joints?
joints out there
Okay.
would have been, back in the day, those joints could be like 60 feet joints. Now, normally they're 15-foot joints. But, yeah, that's what they're probably doing is some of
As
the
I remember,
prep work.
when the new 100 was put in, did they use the old lanes at all?
No,
The loans that were
westbound is all
existing
brand
before we
new.
started?
Yeah, westbound 100 was all brand new alignment. Eastbound then turned, eastbound, which was the east and west movement, when it became all eastbound, that was rehabbed, kind of like a millfill of sorts,
Yeah.
to make that just a one direction.
Okay, so those
But
are.
they're prepping that pavement before they do any overlay to it. Yeah.
So just quick overview. So we talked a lot about traffic. That's one of our big considerations. But other considerations we've already hit on: right of way, very important, really impacts costs, and it impacts the community. I mean, it can be a really big impact to some people members of the community. Driveway and entrance impacts, we're keeping that in mind. Not only current driveways and entrances, but any potential that we have are here for future. Utilities, always a big one. We have a lot of overhead power lines in this area and their supports. Some of them are really close to existing pavement, so that's gonna be an important factor. Costs, obviously, all of these things impact costs. Environmental's already being tracked and discussed, and then there will be a fuller study as we go forward with environmental as we start to narrow down our footprint. Drainage, very important with footprint, obviously, as well, and speeds, and then topography, terrain. We did get some feedback on the typical roadway sections. Got people to give us some feedback on their favorite. I don't know if we have results, if you want to go to the next one. So it doesn't look like there's
Results
showing up
aren't
with
in
results. Yeah.
Yeah.
We heard a lot of, at a high level, there was a high level of support for the 3-lane and the 2-lane divided, is what we heard from most of the CAG. So here's where we talk a little bit about intersections. Whew, I feel like I'm talking a lot. But this is all my wheelhouse, so if we want to go to the next one. We are, as I mentioned, at this point in the process, we were just starting to look at those individual intersections. Like I said, we've just finished going through the north section, looking at every one, trying to see what the needs are. This was a very high level, pros and cons of the different kinds of intersections. Unsignalized, signalized, roundabout. We have unsignalized and signalized throughout the corridor now. Trying to see what those become in the future. As I mentioned, with a 2-lane divided, we'll need to basically design and make sure that we have more intersections where traffic can U-turn if we do a 2-lane divided, so roundabouts come into play there. There's a couple different methods, but One thing we as traffic engineers really like about roundabouts is that it slows traffic down. It's very calming. It also gives an opportunity for those large vehicles to make a turn and turn back into, make a right turn into where they need to go, because we do have a lot of larger vehicles in the corridor, and especially with a left, that's just a safety kind of risk, both for the large vehicle and for oncoming traffic. So roundabouts are really good for those things. They don't stop drivers. We see a lot less driver frustration because they're not necessarily stopped waiting for a signal. So they have a lot of pros. I know with the public, they're still a little sketchy sometimes. So one thing we tried to talk about was at a high level, kind of the pros and cons of some of these different intersection types that we are evaluating. So I don't know if there's any questions on that. I won't dig into each one. But as you can see, unsignalized, which is stop controlled, it's usually just side stop controlled. Sometimes it's the best option and sometimes it's the least best option, right? This is all very location specific. Signalized is the same, although you get to see more where it's the yellow kind of implies that it's good in multiple situations. It's a little, more, it's not the best and it's not the worst. And then with the roundabout, we see that a lot. So it's not necessarily always the best. It's not necessarily all the worst, but it fits and it works in a lot of situations. So it's the easiest high level way I can describe that. Any comments there? We asked for feedback on the intersection alternatives. As you might guess, it was kind of all over the board. We heard some very positive, I love roundabouts. We heard they'd make me nervous. Everybody knows stop controlled and signalized. I will say signalized is a lot more maintenance. There's a lot more stop and go within the corridor. So that's something, that we keep in mind. And actually signals create way more crash potential than roundabouts. That's the one thing I didn't say about roundabouts that I should have. Not only does it calm traffic, but if there are crashes, which there are a lot fewer, they're way less severe. There are no opportunities for a T-bone or a head-on collision with a roundabout, which is another thing that we like. Anything else there? So Missouri 47 and 50, obviously there's some very critical intersections in this corridor that we already started digging into before looking at the rest of the corridor. 47 and 50 was one of them. If you look at the 250-47 intersections, the west one is the critical situation. What we found with the east intersection is really it's functioning okay. It's got enough capacity. So looking towards the future, we anticipate that probably staying the same unless something drastic is done to route traffic around it or something like that. But 47 and 50, the west intersection is obviously a capacity concern right now already. So looking forward to the future. If you want to go to the next slide, we're trying to look at some creative options. One of them is rerouting. So doing kind of a bypass of the corridor and tying in differently. So you can see two options here. One of them ties in using the east intersection. One of them ties in using the west intersection. You've probably seen some of that before. Then we're also looking at utilizing the existing corridor and the existing bridge, which is in pretty good shape, and would save us some money for improvements and enhancements in the rest of the corridor. So this is kind of showing that 4750, and I think the next slide actually shows really looking at, this is what we call a continuous flow intersection, if you've never seen one of those. But what it allows us to do is kind of remove some of these, oh gosh, how do I explain this well? So if you're eastbound on 47, you pull off and get into a left side queue lane to actually make your left. It pulls it out of the middle of the intersection, places it on the north side of the intersection, and without geeking out too much, what that allows us to do is change the timing of that intersection so that we get a lot more capacity. And I'm more than happy to explain it further than that if anybody wants me to.
Is this option, I mean, obviously I would assume minimal right-of-way compared to the previous ones that we have, but I mean,
Yes.
can this, in this option, do you anticipate additional right-of-way or not, do you know?
They are,
Some.
what's that?
There could be some.
There could be some, but really this is pretty close there. They're trying to progress actually the geometrics of this intersection, and we've done some high level, like digging into the analysis to make sure. And as this is shown, it works and it functions through 2050. So it's one thing we really like about it. It handles the future traffic. There could be very minimal right-of-way taking, but obviously it's not a new bridge and it's not a new corridor.
So where's one of those in the state?
One of CFI?
Yeah.
There is one on Gravois Road by Fenton, Gravois Bluffs. Gravois Bluffs.
By Gravois Bluffs?
So, yes. There's actually multiple ones in the state, but I think that might be the closest one.
Yep.
Yeah.
Dorset and 270, I think, does it too. Dorset and 270, they do.
That's a DD,
That's
I think that's the diverging diamond.
Until I don't get it.
Okay. Oh, Dorset and 270? Yeah, that's a diverging diamond. So that's where you actually cross. This one, it's interesting, if you've ever driven a DDI, which I don't know if we have, we actually were looking to see if we could put one of those DDIs into this area as well. When you look at a map like this, you think it's going to be confusing, but when you're in the field, when you're driving a car, there's a sign that's like, if you want to go left, you follow the white lines and you get into your turn bay just like you would get into a turn bay. And it's very straightforward. From the air, it looks like it's different and it's confusing, but to a driver, as long as you're following the signage and following the lanes, it's much easier. So we really like this option just for the fact that it does give us the capacity we want and minimal right-of-way. But again, we are progressing multiple options. But we wanted to share some with the CAG to kind of get people thinking about, that's a big option. Do we do something in place? Or do we spend the money and everything else to try to, build a bypass? So.
First impressions are hard to get your mind out of a
For
certain
sure.
way. I remember we had a meeting here and it's talking about the intersections of V and T and whatever, the up and down Highway 100, and MoDOT presented roundabouts. We weren't ready for roundabouts, all right? Everybody in the room had never probably driven one much, but they were almost 100% against them. And I told Tom Blair just about less than a month ago, I said, Tom, if you came back with that same process and it's what you plan to do, I think it would be approved. Because they did, we could have had roundabouts. We could have, and quite honestly, that might have been the answer to some of the stuff on Highway 100. We don't think about roundabouts, but that would slow down the traffic. I know we'd have fewer accidents, but the people weren't ready to accept roundabouts.
Right.
And a lot of them came from the Villa Ridge and from the east side end of the highway.
Right.
So that's my comment.
No,
Just-
that's a great comment. And I'll be honest, the traffic engineering and MoDOT, we're learning as we're going too. We're learning about how to analyze these and we're getting kind of that history to draw from to be able to kind of point to different solutions and why they might be better or worse. So I completely agree with you. And I think there are times when, in the past, maybe that could have been the option, but we didn't know enough, MoDOT didn't know enough to really kind of push for it.
We didn't know enough to
To really want it.
even
Right.
consider it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I will make one more point. The idea of coming and using this concept here, that was actually on a map. Historically, when the study was done on Highway 47, to do just that, go away from that intersection and come back around. That's 28 years ago.
Yeah.
Go back and look at that. And it's there. They suggested it.
Right. I know they've been talking about a bypass for a long time, multiple times over. So, and we have, for the record, looked back at, there's been a few different studies. We have looked back at those previous studies and tried to pick and choose kind of the best knowledge from those, that research that was done at the time.
And I keep saying this is gonna be the last thing, but Arden had some pictures of the flood. When the flood,
Yes.
we're doing a lot of this for mitigation. Those are just amazing, how high that water was at that intersection of Highway 50. It was amazing. It really opens your eyes to what comes down and hits that area where we're trying to get traffic moved around. Great pictures.
Okay. So we asked for some feedback on those initial concepts, that CFI versus kind of that bypass, just to gauge kind of the temperature of those two options, in place versus realignment. The overall arching, what we heard back was, if we can do it in place, we prefer to do it in place. Again, this was from the CAG, so, but that was the feedback that we got. So, wrap up and next steps.
So as I said, you know, all of this is leading towards the third CAG. You can go ahead, Darren. We're gonna go through these probably pretty quick. So of course, we talked about those goals. Did anybody, you know, think that anything needed to change? And there wasn't really anything. So at that time, that's when we kind of really kicked off the idea of the partnership, and with, of course, Washington and Franklin County's participation here that's now been approved, and we're going to get ready this week to turn in that application for our cost share. So that was kind of unveiled to let everybody know, hey, you know, this is an option as we move forward to try and get more funding here. And so, as I said, you know, we're looking at August of having our next CAG meeting, and then from that, we're going to move right into a second public meeting. And so, of course, that's where we'll just basically unveil everything from the third CAG, just the same way that we're kind of doing today, even. So nothing's just kind of, you know, in secret or in hiding by any means. Everything is just being out there, and that's what we're going to do at the second public meeting as well. So from that, we are going to then start with all the nitty-gritty of the engineering, start developing plans, getting through environmental, everything like that, and prepare for the construction of fiscal year 28.
And just to remind the other members of the committee, City of Washington need a letter of commitment that we agreed with the findings of what was going to happen with MoDOT on the Highway 47 improvements. I signed it as chairman, and I'll read it to you now. Washington Area Transportation Committee is in full support of the proposed Highway 47 improvements as presented at our last meeting. So I'm sure that the City of Washington needed that to add to their repertoire of information. And so
That will accompany the application for the 50/50 cost share.
yeah,
So,
It could be added to the STP as well.
yeah, exactly, for that as well.
Wonderful.
Jordan, I have a question.
Yes.
Over and above the partnership we're gonna have with the City of Washington, let's say that Union and St. Clair wanna jump on board and do this, you know, STP or whatever. And with the CFI that you have, you at 50 and 47.
Sure.
I know you have to stay in the city limits, pretty sure, of your boundaries with your money, but where would Union and St. Clair, where would they do their participation?
Yeah, so there are a lot of different options. In the same case, it all depends on, you know, of course, statutes within the municipality. So in this case, even Washington has something in place that they can go out a little outside of city limits, and they can do that project no problem. So that all depends on each municipality. It also, you know, a lot depends on what is each municipality looking forward into the future. So in this case, this is a great opportunity to get ready for the East-West Parkway and to really spearhead that for the city and to have that in place so that when the time comes to really start developing that area for the city, we've already got 47 taken care of. So that's where, speaking with Darren and Charles and the mayor here, that, you know, we're just paving the way the same way that the city did for 100. And look what that's done for the city of Washington and doing the 4 lanes. You know, that same kind of partnership and paving the way for your city in that future, it shows and it speaks a lot of volume. So if other municipalities of Union or St. Clair do want to jump in and partner in, there are a lot of different options that we could do, and we're happy to explore that with them. So anybody that wants to speak, we're more than happy to have any kind of meeting to go through any kind of the options. Of course, you know, it's talked about that Washington is asking for this next year of the guaranteed STP with nobody else putting in any application from Franklin County. And in that case, you know, if there's any kind of moving forward of any other kind of years, there is opportunities for trying to expedite construction funds that kind of thing. So there are different opportunities from that. There's also a CMAQ application. So with the CMAQ application, there's all kinds of different opportunities for more so air mitigation is what that's for. And so with that, that's another great option of also trying to apply for the 50-50 cost share, just the same Washington is, and then move right into that air mitigation for different types of mitigation. In the intersection of 47 and 50 is a great example of that. You know, with kind of the congestion, everything there, you get something that's flowing a lot better. That air mitigation is going to be higher quality. So at that point, you know, that could be a great CMAQ application. So that's definitely something that anybody who wants to try and partner in, you know, we're more than happy to discuss and help facilitate discussions, even the same way that Franklin County has worked with Washington on the current application. So we're happy to move forward with any kind of option.
If the city of Washington had the intersection of 47 and 50 within its jurisdiction, that's what we'd be doing, what Jordan just described. We'd be going for the cost share. We'd be making a recommendation to go with the cost share with MoDOT and then go after the CMAQ funds for federal 80-20 match, just the same way as what we're doing with the STP.
Right. CMAQ has a lot more, I guess, hurdles per se to jump through, and it's harder to get a project for it as it has to fit a lot of different criteria. STP is kind of more for those general type projects and everything. So that would make sense to fit that criteria of that kind of project instead of the STP application.
I think without Union and making that partnership possibly with the county commission, without that, I think you're going to be severely limited to the last option of what they talked about at 50 and 47. If you want to do a bypass, that's the only way that bypass could work is if you went ahead and Union did an application just similar to what we're doing and work out an agreement with the county. And that because otherwise, if you try to do that bypass options with the limited funding that MoDOT has for this corridor, I just don't see that without that application. I think you might as well forget about the bypass. He's not going to say that yet, but I'll say that.
There any other questions?
Yeah, the numbers that you put out there, was that based on open flow analysis?
That was through traffic. You talking about the sections?
Yeah, you had 28,000 to take us into the future for a 2-lane, then you have to question why we congested now when we're at 2 lanes.
It'll be the intersections. So that just tells you the through traffic, and then on top of that, we do have to investigate what is the need at each intersection to make the whole corridor work. So that was just a simplified version to explain how much capacity those different typical sections
So
have.
that's just an open flow capacity, not a
Correct.
realistic capacity.
Correct.
And that's also looking at daily, I mean, not, you know, the peak hours when you're seeing
Well, peak
the
hours don't be
congestion,
always
but it's kind of looking at an overall daily average.
Right. And then when you made the comment about more concrete is higher speeds, that's not a very fair statement, I don't think.
That is what research and experience is showing us almost in
I
every
got
single
40 years as
situation.
traffic engineer, I don't, I'd have to say that's not a very fair statement. And
Especially since COVID, it's what we're really finding. It really is. I mean, the gentleman up front made the point that people just aren't courteous drivers anymore, and they're also faster drivers. We're just seeing that across the board.
Right, no, a lot of that is due to congestion. I hear we need to slow down the traffic, but when you slow down the traffic, that causes congestion, and then people get frustrated. And then that's when they start doing things they shouldn't be doing out there, because of the frustration that they're going through daily. If you have a laminar flow of traffic out there, people aren't frustrated. And you showed the speeds up there, were those 85th percentile speeds, or were those just
They were 85%
speeds you picked out? So the 62s and all that was 85th percentile?
Yes.
Okay, because I'd like to see those numbers. And the roundabouts, you know, you said it's gonna solve problems. Roundabouts are fine for low speed analysis. But when you start getting higher speeds, roundabouts become,
And I think that's part of the goal is we want to lower speeds in this corridor.
so you want
Part of
something
the
more
MoDOT's
than 55, is what you're saying?
goal is to lower speeds, yes, lower than 55.
So Commissioner, kind of what you were talking about of, you know, kind of having that laminar flow of the continual just flow. That's what a lot of what they're looking at already is how do we move traffic without having that stop to create that congestion, kind of just like you were saying. So in that case of the turn lanes or this, that, and the other thing of what we are exploring, you know, that's just one of those things of how do you keep traffic moving? Because once you do have those stops, everybody's picking this up, right? People are finding those distractions. People are trying to find different ways around, maybe on the shoulder or something that they shouldn't be doing. So you're right. You know, how do we keep that traffic flowing? How do we move it? But you know, even if it's, you know, a slower speed, they're still moving. So we're still getting that traffic through, and everybody doesn't seem to, you know, mind having to go a slower speed because you're not stopping continually like you are currently, and that causes that congestion. So even the slower speed, you know, helps increase the safety a little bit, but you don't have those stoppages or anything. So that's where that difference is between even the 55, between 45, is that's the goal, is how do we just keep traffic moving? And that's what we're analyzing.
Stop traffic is the safest you can get. They're not moving, right?
We're gonna have to move on, guys. I think this discussion is, you know,
Sure, yep.
way beyond my capabilities, so we need to get this meeting, we're already an hour into this meeting.
Oh.
And, not that it isn't important, but we could be here for 2 hours more, but we've got an agenda to get by, and we'll do it. Anything, from Warren County?
Can we, before we jump to that, I do want to give them an update on the 100 turn lanes into Oldenburg.
Yeah, that's important.
Yeah, so this is the 50/50 grant portion, but Oldenburg, the turn lanes out there, they have striped it last week, and then they just have guardrail out there, so we're almost completed with the project to add the turn lanes in Oldenburg.
Very good. Looks good. Thank you. Again, Warren County, you guys got anything? Joe?
Jeff ain't here, but other than Interstate 70, that's kind of not a nightmare, but be careful on 70. It's going to be busy for several years. And on the south of, on 94 here by Dutzel, they're going to be they're paving that right now, overlaying. So that's really been an update right now. So I know Jeff ain't here.
Very good, Joe.
Very good.
Let us know if we can help you in any way.
Thanks, sir.
Washington Special Road District? I don't think we've got a
It's not here.
Old Highway 100 Bridge, that's kind of an important bridge.
Jordan?
Jordan?
Yes,
Yeah.
at this time, we don't have any update. We're almost finished with the contract, I believe, Aaron?
Yeah, we're working on reviewing scope and fee right now with the consultant.
How long do you think
To
that's
get
gonna take?
contract.
How long are we talking about that bridge? Since there was a slide in, you know, the boundary area.
So Franklin County is working on that slide and everything, but we've still got to work on our project
Jim,
and develop
yeah,
plans
give us
and
a report,
everything.
Jim, on what's going on there. People are asking about that.
We've experienced a slide on 100 to the point where we've closed the road.
Yes.
And it's in engineering right now. They are looking at all the results. They cored down over 100 feet in an area, over 90 feet in another area. And it's silt, sand, and just debris. And they are looking at the shear levels of the material and determining what needs to be done to rebuild that, to give a stable surface to build the road on. We expect that any day, the results of that study and their recommendations. The geoengineers have it right now.
Well, I mean, you guys are aware of it, MoDOT's aware of it because of the bridge. And we've got, this problem basically has to be resolved or something has to be done there. It appears that.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, as fast as you can. And anything we can do to help you, letters, whatever.
Is that slide out quite a bit east or past the bridge, or is it right at the bridge?
Right down there.
There's about a 400-foot section that has experienced a slide.
And it's close to the bridge, it's not the one that was up the hill and around that corner?
No, it's not around the
Okay.
corner. It's right in front of the parking lot at the
Old Seco.
plant there.
Old Seco, yes, the whole length of it. Yeah. Thanks, Jim. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Thanks.
Airport. Anything new?
Charles, you want to give them an update on the bids?
We're gonna keep you
So
up there,
we
Charles,
have
next
the
week.
project to widen the runway out there. MoDOT's still going through the approvals. They expect to get that back in August. And then KJU was the low bidder for that project. So August, September, we can get them under contract and hopefully either fall or spring, get that project completed. So
Okay. East-West Parkway, while you're there.
no real update on this.
Public transportation,
Taylor's here.
Taylor or? Taylor, you got 5 minutes. Each of you, we'll give you 5 minutes. I know your stuff's important.
I was gonna say, I could get up here and I think we all know that I can talk. I'll keep my state updates short and sweet. The first update is that obviously EasyMo is part of a bigger organization, Jefferson Franklin Community Action Corporation. I had talked to you last time about how we recently located to Union. I just wanted to point out 2 things. The first thing is that just in the month, just shy of a month that we have been out there and open to the public, we have actually seen an increase in the amount of walk-ins that we're seeing on a daily basis. So that just goes to support that our agency did make the right decision in relocating to that Union office, because just like I said, in that time we've been up there, we have seen almost double the amount of people in a 1-month time frame. So we just wanted to put that out there to let everybody know that we're out there, we're here to support the community. But with being out there and supporting the community, the other aspect that I was here to say is that we are actually closed this week. The first week of July is, every year we close the first week of July. So June 30th to July 4th, we will be closed this week to the public. This is just an agency shutdown, kind of a reset for the staff, going into most of our programs' new financial years, things like that. The program directors are getting reset for the year. That's the first update. The second update is that I am up to 7 volunteers located here in Franklin County. So that's the first update. And then the last one on that is just to say that I'm up to 7 and I actually have 3 more pending. So just to say that I am excited to see the growth out here with volunteers, and just to say if you continue to know anybody in the community that would like to volunteer for our program, we are always here and accepting more volunteers. That's my update.
Thank you, Taylor, for
Thank
what
you,
you
guys.
do. Keep it up.
Oh, thank you so much, guys.
Thank you. Megan?
Okay, so I am chatting about the intercity route from all of the intersections, all the way up to St. Louis. Our trips are still increasing. We do almost an intercity trip almost every single day. It's basically the major hospitals off of New Ballas that individuals don't have the transportation to get there. We still haven't done an airport run, which I don't know how. But yeah, we had 18 trips this month alone. Going there, that doesn't include going back. So almost every single day, we're taking individual from Franklin County to St. Louis for their specialty appointments. And like I said, it's $10 each way. So we've heard a lot of great things, and currently we still do, you call if we have available driver, we do it, we pick you up at your house. If we ever get too big, then we'll have to go to certain days and like picking up at the, beside the interstate. But I mean, Oates is door-to-door service, so we do what we can for our people, and it's a really big success. So I keep telling everybody, if you know people who need the transportation, to the city, give us a call, because more than likely we'll figure it out for
It's a
you.
great service, and I'm not surprised you're not overwhelmed.
Well, it's nice. It's
Yes.
so nice to help
So
our.
nice. It's a good, super event for what you guys do.
Oh yeah, and $20, because before it'd be like $160 minimum. So that with that grant in place, we can help so many people, and everyone is just thrilled and actually going to their appointments that they need. They just aren't putting it off because they couldn't afford it. So
Thank you a
Yep.
lot.
Thanks, guys. Thank
bet.
you.
Thanks for the report. Half-cent sales tax, very important item.
Yes, so the Sales Tax Renewal Committee met earlier this month. Their next meeting is July 11th. But at the earlier meeting, it was their first meeting, we discussed the importance of putting both sales tax on the ballot for April of 2026, not only the capital improvement sales tax, which sunsets in 2026, but also the transportation sales tax as well. So there was a little bit of a discussion about that. We've got room for a little discussion again at the next meeting in July. But so far, nobody's really come up with better alternative as to when do you present that to the voters other than doing it at the same time. So with that being said, we will, at the next meeting, the agenda is pretty much have a short discussion about both of those being on the ballot again, but then we'll mainly hear from emergency response services and their needs for the next 8 years. That'll be the bulk of the meeting. And then we'll also have an opportunity for some of these smaller park projects that some of these groups would like to go ahead and do. They'll have an opportunity to address the committee and talk about their overall needs for their facilities or what they'd like to see. The September meeting, which is probably going to be the focus of the transportation, certainly would invite all of you to go ahead and attend that meeting. Like I said, all of these meetings are open to the public. Sandy's chairing the committee and overviewing the agendas, and like I said, we're on track. We had a great first meeting and looking forward to the next. So,
Sandy, would an endorsement from this committee be proper at this point to get this?
Well, I think at some point, but we haven't really discussed the transportation arm of this yet,
That's what
so.
I'm asking.
No, but at some point, yes, absolutely.
later at the end of the year, I think,
The end of the year.
I don't want to be presumptuous for the committee. The committee's got to make
I
their
don't either. I
decisions.
don't
Yeah, they got to make a recommendation as to,
But we'll let them,
Yeah.
we'll go through the process
Right.
and, but yes, a lot of recommendation would be great, but it's just too early to do that right now.
I would say so.
Yeah, and just for the record, this half-cent transportation tax, that has, from inception, which was in 2005, to now, we've collected probably close to $38 million. $38 million. Can you imagine if we didn't have this for transportation, what our roads would look like?
That's the, yes,
We'd be talking about Highway 100.
yeah. You wouldn't be talking about the intersections at 100, you'd be talking about,
I mean, in 2025 was when we were in the original schedule for MoDOT, right?
so I've been told. So,
So, again, when you need it, I can't make any presumptions of the other people on the committee, but obviously, I think we're all in favor of it wholeheartedly, because we can't do without it.
one of the
One
points
good
we
roads,
made,
we can't
one,
do
I'm sorry, one of the points we made at the meeting was the fact that in 2026, you do already have 2 citywide, assuming that they're going to move forward with the capital improvement sales tax and go forward with that. That's a citywide election, as well as the mayoral election is in 2026. 2027, if you waited till then, you could, but then it'd be another citywide election. We talked about that at the sales tax renewal committee. Those are the options.
Yeah, anyway.
We'll let you know, Bill.
Any other business? Wow. Hearing none. Entertain a motion to adjourn? Anybody?
Make motion.
You want to stay here all day?
Second.
Have a motion to adjourn. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you all very much.
Hey.
This is your first meeting, sir?
We got a meeting after this.
It is.